And behold, our red horse. Power was given to he who sat thereon to take peace from the earth. Okay, my friends, so let's dive right into this. Today we're going to be talking about the keto diet, sort of the paleo diet. Now, basically, the only real difference between these two is that one is a scientific argument, the other is a pseudo-scientific argument. Both of them are false, and I will try to explain that in this video. So, I want you guys to realize this, number one. So you've got your protein, carbs, and fats. These are your three main macronutrients. And protein and carbohydrates are, for 1 gram, 4 calories. Now for 1 gram of fat, it's 9 calories. And you might say that, whatever, right? Well, when you get to the point where you have 50, 60, 70 grams of fat in your diet, there's a big difference between that in terms of calories and 50, 60, 70 grams of carbohydrates. Atherosclerosis, also known as the buildup of plaque in the walls of your arteries. This is caused by saturated and trans fats. Caused, not just correlated. The scientific community has come to the consensus that this is what causes atherosclerosis. This is a very recent development that happened in 2017. The buildup of plaque in the walls of your arteries and veins leads to heart attack and stroke. And I can argue for everybody when I say that nobody wants that at all. Now, I want you to think about this. If you have a diet that is pretty much only fats and protein, and most of your calories are going to come from fats, how many more trans fats and saturated fats do you think, because of the whole shift in the ratio of your macronutrients away from carbohydrates and to fats, how many more trans fats and saturated fats do you think that you're going to get in your diet? And quite simply, the answer is a lot more, because no matter what kind of food you get that is your fat source, it's always going to contain some saturated fats, unless you're just chugging back a thing of raw fish oils, which I don't know if that's a good idea. It's probably really expensive, but it's not a feasible way to do a diet. And no matter what kind of food you're eating to attain your fats, whether it's sort of a vegetarian way of doing it, whether you're just drinking some olive oil, which some people do, believe it or not, or if you're, God forbid that you're, eating bacon every single day in great amounts. Either way, you're going to be getting a lot of saturated fat, and in a diet that has a lot more meat in it, like if you have a lot of bacon every day or chicken wings, you're going to get a lot of trans fats too, animal tissue, animal fat. So if you have a diet that is really high in fat, it's going to automatically, by default, have a lot more of those really bad fats in it. And it's going to cause cholesterol buildup in your bloodstream, and we don't want that. That's not healthy at all. And of course, here's the flip side. I'm going to, play the devil's advocate for a second here. And we're only talking about ketogenic diets right now. I'll get into paleo in a minute, but the reason that people do keto diets is really for the sake of satiety. That is the main, I guess, sort of anecdotal thing that people get into keto for, because I'm not going to lie here. I would be much more satiated if I were eating high-fat food all day. I think your body just craves that sort of fatty, salty stuff, and it makes you full. Quite frankly, doesn't really matter what it is. I find when I have a meal that's ridden with fat, I'm full very quickly, whereas it takes me quite a bit more carbohydrates to satiate my hunger. And so that is one of the reasons why a keto diet might be good for you. I'm not saying that it's going to be healthy. In fact, I'm saying the opposite. However, if you find that you're somebody with a ravenous appetite, and if you can't do any other diet, you've tried the other methods and you just can't do it, and you can get away with doing it on a keto diet, then obviously I'm going to tell you, do the keto diet, because if you can reduce your adipose body tissue, like especially if you're obese, with a ketogenic diet, then, I mean, how am I going to argue that, right? You're losing weight, you're losing tissue that's not healthy for you, that is also a correlating factor when it comes to heart attack and stroke. So, if it helps you get rid of that, and then maybe later in life you can move to a more carbohydrate source diet, then perfect, right? Okay, so I want you guys to think about something here. I want you guys to think about the other kinds of diets that you can have. Now, here's what most coaches for athletes recommend. Most coaches will recommend that their athletes eat a diet with as many carbohydrates as they can possibly get away with. And the reason that they do this is because of the fact that carbohydrates, whether it's, refined carbohydrate, I'm not telling you to eat sugar, okay? I didn't say eat table sugar, but if you've got really white potatoes, sweet potatoes, any kind of whole grain, as long as it's a carbohydrate, that breaks down into glucose very easily. And your body uses glucose as a source of fuel. Your body needs glucose in order to function. That's why we eat. That's why we eat. And the more carbohydrates that you can fit into your diet, the more glucose you're going to have for training. And this is when it comes to losing weight. We're talking about being in a calorie deficit here, right? Now, let me bring this to your attention. When you are cutting, I don't know if you guys have been really lean before. I've been to the point where I was 6% body fat once. Will I ever go there again? Probably not. I hope not. But it's possible. But one of the things that you'll notice when you start to get really lean is this. You will lose strength. Your performance in the gym will go down. When that happens, that is a sign that you have wasted muscle tissue. And it is a sign that you will continue to do so if you aren't able to train at 100% when you're in there again. So let's say that you're benching, you're benching 185 for sets of 10 when you're bulking, right? You go on a cut, it's been a few months, you've lost some body fat, but then all of a sudden you notice that, oh, geez, I can only get 185 for like 6 now. What happened here? You've wasted muscle. It could also be a factor of the fact that you don't have enough fuel. You haven't eaten enough that day. I find that this is just an anecdote, by the way, I find that when I'm in the gym and I haven't eaten that day, my performance suffers very greatly. And what most coaches will say is that, yeah, absolutely. We don't want our athletes when they're in season to lose any sort of performance on the field or in the gym. And in order to minimize that, we're going to give them a lot of carbohydrates to fuel their training. So, do you see where I'm going with this? I'm going to recommend that everybody who doesn't want to lose their performance in the gym, get fueled up every time you go in there, because of the fact that if you don't, your training's going to suffer, your body's going to adapt and eventually detrain itself if you continuously do that, and you're going to waste your muscle. And I don't know if you know this, but this is going to be my 5th year in the gym. The next bulk that I go on, I might gain a single pound of muscle if I'm lucky. And that's going to take around, give or take, a year. And I don't want to waste a year's work on the fact that I was too blinded by what diet I'm on, that it hindered my performance, and then I lost an entire year of progress. So be very careful with that. And of course, you've got your muscle memory. It's all going to come back, but there's no need to purposely do that to yourself if you know better. Now let's talk about the question of insulin. Now, when you eat carbohydrates, if you eat a lot of them in one sitting, you will experience a spike in insulin. That's the truth. Now, what people tend to get mixed up is the fact that, oh, well, if that goes up, then I'm going to start storing fat, and that's not a good thing. That's not necessarily true at all, especially when you consider the fact that insulin, it elevates the enzymes for muscle repair as well. And if you've got your calories right, you shouldn't have to worry, like really, as much as I want to talk shit about keto, as long as you hit your calories for the day, and if you go below them, you're going to eventually be losing body fat, and the slower you do it, the more fat you'll lose when it comes to the ratio between that and muscle. But when it comes to insulin, one of the biggest things that people talk about is like, when my insulin goes up from a meal that's high in carbs, I kind of get some kind of a fog in my head, and I do get that. I experienced that. But something, like, it doesn't affect my ability to think at all. It doesn't affect my ability to work. And I think that unless you're diabetic or have some kind of a precursor to diabetes, you should not be experiencing any sort of dramatic changes in your cognitive ability by eating a plate of spaghetti. Now, this is the part of the video where I'm going to get into the paleo diet. And basically, the idea of the paleo diet is, it's pretty much the same thing as a keto diet, except it's more of like a, I don't know if I want to call it a bro science diet, because it does sort of involve some kind of research into human ancestry. And it's basically this: we're going to eat what the ancient hunter-gatherer humans, Homo sapiens, ate, because that's what we're designed to do. That's how we were designed as a species. And to that, I want to ask you, have you actually opened an anthropology book in your life? Because the interesting thing about humans is this, if you believe in evolution. Humans come from a very long line of highly adaptive species. I want you to go into nature and find an animal that can do this. You won't be able to unless it's one of our ancestors. And the reason for that is because we are, supposedly, according to research, we might be wrong, but the reason that you will not find an animal that can do that is because we are descended from a species or actually a series of species that used its fingers. Now this, if you look at this tiny bone at the tip of your finger, theirs were really long, and they would like claw into trees and stuff to get insects. I guess I'm getting off on a bit of a tangent here, but essentially, when it comes to the diet, we are descended from things that ate insects. We are descended from animals that ate a lot of different things. And when it comes to Homo sapiens, our species, yes, we had hunter-gatherers. We had the people who ate megafauna and berries and all sorts of things out in ancient Europe, ancient Africa. Actually, when it comes to ancient, I mean like tens of thousands of years in the past. I think even hundreds of thousands if you really want to get into it. But basically, when it came to the agricultural revolution, where we discovered wheat, we discovered corn, and we discovered the fact that if enough of us get together, we can we can make this this giant plantation and we can eat all this food, we wouldn't have eaten it if we couldn't have eaten it. But the fact of the matter is, our digestive tracts are very highly evolved and we can eat pretty much anything. Now, there are some restrictions to that. Have you ever eaten a piece of metal before? I have not. I have never eaten that. But some people have, and you'll notice that it goes straight through their tract, and you know, they defecate it right out because we cannot digest metal in its solid form. We can also not digest cellulose fiber, which is why humans cannot eat raw bamboo. If you look at a few, and we also can't eat wood, which is essentially cellulose fiber. And we actually had a cousin, our ancestors had a cousin rather, Australopithecus gracile form was our Australopithecine ancestor, and they had a cousin called Australopithecus robustus, and they actually had this big crest on their head. It was like this big bone that stuck up, and believe it or not, their chewing muscles attached to it, and it gave them the ability to grind down food really hard, and their teeth were able to digest cellulose fiber for them. It could, their teeth would just mash this stuff down, and they could eat it through their digestive tract. Now, they went extinct. That is what we mean when we can say that humans are not designed to eat certain things. Humans are designed to eat bugs. We're designed to eat fruit, berries, vegetables, roots, like carrots and potatoes. We're designed to eat red meat. We are designed to eat fowl. We're designed to eat fish. And we are designed to eat things that and because we learned how to cook food and get all the bacteria off of it through cauterization, essentially, through the fire, we learned to eat certain other foods, like chicken, like red meat. And it's because of our ability to adapt that we are able to eat all of these things. But one thing that we cannot eat is cellulose fiber. We cannot eat that. We cannot eat bark off of trees. We can't eat metal. Those are things that humans cannot digest at all. When it comes to the paleo diet, it's just, yeah, that's all it is. And because of the fact that we do know certain things about our body's ability to process things, like carbohydrates turn into glucose. Glucose is immediately usable for energy, you know. We know that protein is essentially what builds the tissues of our body. We know that fats are used to create adipose body tissue and hormones for other purposes in our body. Because we know of these things, and because we know how much of what is good for us, we are we are more able to create a more optimized diet for ourselves, essentially. So, very long video. I apologize for that, but I had to get it all off my chest because I am on a crusade against bro science in the fitness community. So thank you very much for watching. I highly recommend that you send this to your friends. Help them attain glory through their physiques, through their strength. Okay, please like the video, leave a comment if you want to discuss this, and always remember, have a nice day.